Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping right in today, exploring something really fundamental. It's about personal power.
Yeah, how you access it, how you actually apply it for, success and fulfillment.
Exactly. And the source for this deep dive is Vernon Howard's book, Success Through the Magic of Personal Power.
hmm It lays out this really compelling vision for how you can genuinely attain what you're looking for in life.
So, our mission, looking at the material you brought into the dive today, is to unpack those core ideas
Yeah, pull out the practical stuff, the methods it describes.
and see how these principles can actually empower you, like right now.
The book makes this pretty bold claim, doesn't it? That you have the power to get whatever you want.
It does. It says life is so constituted that every need is matched by supply. We want to kind of shortcut you to what that really means.
Okay, so let's start with that foundational idea.
Mhm.
The source kicks off with something that might feel, well, surprising.
When-
That you are already a perfectly powerful individual right now, whether you feel it, whether you believe it. The book says that power is just fundamentally you.
That's quite a mindset shift, isn't it? Because often we see things like, I don't know, aggression or rudeness as power.
Right. But the source draws a really sharp line there. It says, look, things like hatred, malice, rudeness,
Hmm.
they look strong, maybe, but they actually come from weakness, from inadequacy, really.
Not genuine strength.
Not at all. And this inherent power, it's not limited. It's available for, well, basically every need you have.
Every need, like career, happiness.
Career, happiness, overcoming failures, you name it. The source is really firm.
Mm.
For every single challenge or desire, there's a matching supply of this power inside you.
And what's fascinating is that the book argues the key isn't getting more power from somewhere else.
No, it's about understanding and then using what you already possess.
And this isn't just a self-help concept in isolation. The book suggests it aligns with insights from, well, all over science, psychology, philosophy.
Even religion, yeah.
Yeah.
And it frames developing this strength not just as something nice to have, but almost like a duty to yourself.
So why do we feel powerless so often then? Where does that come from?
Well, the book points to those rigid viewpoints we hold. I'm too old, I'm too young, I failed before, so I'll fail again. I'm just average kind of thinking.
The mental blocks. So getting rid of those fixed ideas, those limits we put on ourselves.
That's the key. That's what charges you up with the strengths you had all along.
Hmm.
It talks about reigniting that faith in one's own power just by clearing out the mental clutter blocking it.
Right. And it stresses seeing these qualities, enthusiasm, focus, decisiveness, not just as words, but as practical tools.
Exactly. Practical principles you can actually use to achieve things in your life.
Okay, let's dive into some of those specific powers the book explores. First one up, decisiveness. This feels like a big one.
Oh, it's huge. The source uses this amazing image it calls decisiveness, the crown that endows your life with kingly supremacy and authority.
Wow, okay, so it's not about waiting for authority, it's about claiming it through your choices, becoming the ruler of your own life, sort of.
Precisely. And that helps explain why indecision feels so draining, right? It's
Yeah.
described as this internal tug of war
Between what you want consciously.
and that subconscious fear that's pulling you back. Yeah,
So the book basically says, revolt. Revolt against indecision, your greatest enemy.
pretty much. And it connects to this idea that freedom grows. Like every choice you make freely strengthens that freedom muscle, making the next free choice easier.
So making decisions, even small ones, builds that inner authority. And the source claims this naturally boosts self-esteem.
Yeah, and it earns admiration too. It's the opposite of that confused, unsettled mind that just kind of sinks deeper the more it churns.
There's that story about Roy the salesman, right? Paralyzed by thinking about big accounts.
Yeah, totally relatable.
Mhm.
And the insight for him was just to simplify. Decide one thing right now. To call or not to call. That's it.
Not the whole strategy, just the immediate action.
Exactly. It unlocked him. And then there's Herbert D., the merchant, wanting to build a house by Christmas.
Getting stuck on the financing worries.
Right. And the book suggests this revolutionary thinking. Make the core decision, build the house, and don't let the how, like the financing worries, sabotage that initial choice. The power of the decision itself handles the details.
So the rule that comes out of this is what?
It's simple but powerful. Absolute inflexibility towards the goal. Be totally committed to the what, but absolute flexibility in how you get there. Be adaptable on the methods.
Stick to the goal, flex on the path. Got it. Okay, so you've made a strong decision. How does that translate into the real world? The next step is action.
Yep. Action is presented as the force that actually turns those intentions, those decisions, into real results, into rewards.
The book uses that Hernando Cortez example, doesn't it? Facing overwhelming odds.
Yeah, 40,000 natives, just 400 soldiers. His power wasn't just thinking, it was acting. Putting everything into the fight now, that commitment led to the win.
And it defines genuine action as the kind that truly satisfies you.
Right. The man of action is a finisher. They follow through until something proves true or false. They know action actually clears up uncertainty.
Like Roger D. with the used cars, thinking for 2 years.
Yeah. And then the advice was just start. Put 5 cars out, sold 3 immediately. He found out that taking action, even when he wasn't sure, built the certainty he needed.
So, link desire straight to action. Don't just wish, plunge. Don't just yearn, strike.
That's the energy, yeah. And it also tackles the fear of making mistakes.
Right, the paralysis of potential error.
The book points out most of our worry isn't actually about the mistake itself. It's about the consequences we imagine.
Ah, okay. Like fearing embarrassment or loss.
Exactly. Think of Edison and the light bulb, thousands of failures.
Yeah.
But that was just intelligent experimentation, right? Learning what didn't work.
So the advice is act imperfectly, but act often.
Precisely. Don't wait for perfection. And it even touches on holding back from doing rewarding things because maybe they feel unconventional or you feel guilty.
Like Floyd C., feeling bad about taking a break at work.
Yeah. He had to act against that feeling, realize that guilt was a kind of hoax, stealing his energy. The book says it's your right, even your duty, to meet your basic healthy needs.
So you learn best from acting and then observing.
Action plus observation, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that sales instructor asking, what don't I know that I should? You find the gaps by doing, then watching the results. And if the action is fundamentally right, the immediate result isn't always the main point. The correct action eventually leads where it needs to.
Makes sense. But all this outer stuff, decisions, actions, really depends on the inner landscape, doesn't it? Which brings us to personality and self-understanding.
Absolutely. The source says your personality is the heart of everything. Business, life, all of it.
And it talks about that struggle people have, trying so hard to be liked or seem attractive, like Leon's story.
Right. Leon did everything the expert said, followed all the rules, but still felt left out.
Why?
Because the desperate striving itself was the problem. It blocked his natural, real self from coming through. And that's what's genuinely attractive. Trying too hard repels.
Ah, okay, so forcing it creates tension. The book introduces constructive self-interest. What's that about? It sounds a bit selfish.
It sounds, but it's not meant negatively. It means genuinely putting your own true best interests first: peace of mind, growth, well-being.
As opposed to
mistaken self-serving, like constant worry or letting gloomy thoughts dominate you. Those things actually sacrifice you to negativity. Prioritizing your inner peace, the source says, can unlock solutions externally too.
And a strong personality comes from inner peace and poise.
That's the connection, yeah. And that requires self-understanding, really looking at your self-image, why you believe things, what your defenses are, your true likes, dislikes, your emotions.
Like anger, fear, really examining them.
Without judgment, crucially. And it warns about clinging to an unrealistic self-image.
Because it's fragile.
Super fragile. And trying to protect that false image stops you seeing important truths about yourself. Then reality bumps up against it, and you get upset.
So the first step to change is
seeing yourself as you actually see yourself right now, faults included, but without condemning yourself. Acceptance, not judgment, is the key to unlocking change.
And self-sufficiency comes from that. That's the foundation for confidence.
That's what the source argues. Being real, flaws and all, without beating yourself up, that frees you to become who you want to be.
Okay, moving on to influencing others. The source talks about authority and influence and knowing human nature.
Right. And the foundational rule is command yourself first if you want to command others constructively. You need to become a bit of an amateur psychologist, as the book puts it.
An amateur psychologist. How so?
It introduces this idea of bell ringing. It's not manipulation. It's about genuinely connecting with people's deeper needs and desires, the often unspoken ones.
Because deep down, we're all lonely.
That's the powerful insight the book offers. At heart, we are all basically lonely people. Tapping into that shared need for connection, for understanding, that's where real influence lies.
So how do you ring someone's bell?
The advice is pretty interesting. Ring the bells you wish others would ring for you.
Like what?
Like sharing your own successes modestly. Or being openly faulty sometimes. Admitting mistakes, people secretly crave that honesty.
Because they struggle with it themselves.
Exactly. Or
Ugh.
just being natural, maybe even a bit foolish sometimes. It shows others it's okay to be imperfect without losing self-worth. You're meeting a universal human need.
And the book is clear. People admire strengths, they don't admire weakness.
Very clear. So don't try to connect by mirroring their weaknesses, like joining in, complaining, or conforming nervously. Fill the need they unconsciously have for you to be strong and clear in that moment.
Embody the strength they're looking for.
Yes. By doing that, you maturely command the situation and yourself. Max, the investment counselor example, had all the facts, but his real power came from meeting the emotional needs of his clients, ringing their bells.
Got it. The book also goes into specific mental powers.
Right, things like attention. It describes our attention as naturally agile, obedient. It gives that little experiment you can try.
Recalling an event, focusing on clothes, changing the angle.
Yeah, just to prove you can direct your thoughts. They aren't just random noise. They follow your command when you apply focus.
And the practical use.
Just quiet, focused attention on what you're doing strengthens that muscle, makes you more effective. Also, when stuck on a problem, shift attention off the problem.
And onto your relationship with the problem.
Exactly. Like Mr. and Mrs. J arguing with their son. They shifted focus from the argument itself to their own feelings of being threatened. That shift gave them clarity and control instantly.
Interesting. Then there's self-directed emotion.
Emotions are huge energizers, right? The key is directing them. If you feel negative, discouraged about work, say the book suggests getting indignant.
Indignant at the work.
No, indignant at the feeling itself,
Yeah.
at the discouragement. You refuse to let that feeling dominate you.
Ah, okay. You turn the energy against the negativity.
Precisely. And this links to using rebellion constructively.
Rebellion against
Yeah.
timidity.
Yeah. Or other negative feelings. Use self-induced rebellion to push past fear or hesitation. Like the person who got furious at their own timidity about asking for a sales meeting that anger pushed them to do it. It cites Dr. Lindner suggesting we're biologically rebels. We need to protest inner limits to live fully.
Okay, and the last mental power mentioned here is exaggeration or overlearning.
This one's fun. It's deliberately, intentionally exaggerating your skills or current state in your mind to stretch yourself.
It's like a runner mentally picturing themselves going faster than they currently can.
Or a speaker imagining delivering a talk with huge impact. Yeah. That's mentally pushing beyond your current perceived limits.
And David's transformation story.
Yeah, he intentionally acted excessively, extravagantly in certain situations just to break his old mold. The source says this deliberate mental stretching unlocks incredible power by forcing you out of your comfortable, self-imposed box. Okay, let's switch gears to something very practical. The power to get more done in less time.
We could all use some of that.
Definitely. And the book's core point here is interesting. Time isn't just the clock. It's largely psychological. It's about commanding your attitudes towards time and tasks.
Not just wishing for more hours.
Right, which leads to this concept called success through subtraction.
Subtraction, like cutting things out.
Exactly. Cutting out time-wasting attitudes and actions. Like the businessman totally consumed by worrying about future market conditions. He needs to subtract that pointless worry that's eating up his present moment.
Okay, that makes sense. Subtracting mental drains.
Or physical ones. The woman who felt overwhelmed cut out non-essential evening clubs, even though she felt she couldn't.
And she found she had way more time.
3 times as much, apparently. The lesson is, subtract things even if you think it's impossible. Your perception of time actually changes when you remove the drains.
And simplicity leads to efficiency.
Yes. Reduce things to the bare minimum needed to reach the objective. Strip away the fluff, the excuses. Like the story of building a new plant, it got done by simply building it, cutting out all the reasons why it supposedly couldn't happen. Protect your real interests. The book says, health, happiness, efficiency, not your ego.
The book also touches on scientific powers. What does that mean in this context?
It's about adopting a scientific-minded attitude. Basically, you master things, including your own nature, by obeying the underlying principles.
Obeying, not controlling.
Obeying the principles leads to control, like taking orders from the headmaster called life, from reality, from proven principles like the ones we're discussing. It's seen as maturity, willingly following the rule of the game, like a scientist follows laws of physics or a mathematician follows rules of logic.
So different fields offer principles for different needs.
Exactly. Semantics for better conversation, economics for finance, constructive thinking, like in the book, for happiness. You consciously apply the relevant principles.
And you can use logical deduction, like Paul the mystery fan.
Yeah, he analyzed his relationship problems like a detective case. Deduced the issue was not understanding human nature, then applied principles from the book like people admiring strength, and changed his approach. Solved the case, basically.
Okay, let's talk money. The source has a section on forces that make you make more money.
Right. And one really interesting strategy is called Operation Opposite.
Operation opposite.
Yeah. You identify a personality flaw or a situation holding you back, and then you deliberately apply its opposite.
How do you identify the obstacle clearly?
Often by its absence, the source suggests. Like Walter, the insurance agent. His obstacles were not understanding customer motivation.
And a small advertising budget.
Right. So Operation Opposite meant actively learn about human nature, opposite of misunderstanding, and drastically increase publicity, opposite of small budget. Both paid off.
Clever. Then there's alert nonchalance. Sounds like a contradiction.
It does. But it means being super alert for opportunities while staying relaxed and unconcerned about the immediate results. It's a creative state, invited by a quiet mind, not forced excitement.
Like Kenneth, the real estate broker.
Exactly. He canvassed properties he labeled no sales, deliberately expecting nothing from most, took the pressure off. But being alert within that nonchalance allowed him to spot the few who were ready.
So he said sales just nonchalantly come our way.
Yep. Because he targeted the opposite of the expected hot leads.
And the third force here is dynamic duplication.
Basically, don't always try to reinvent the wheel. Study successful formulas that already exist, understand why they work, and apply those principles. Edison's constant experiments, Beaconsfield's advice to adopt proven systems, find what works and duplicate the core idea.
Now, what about the flip side? Failure. The book offers winning weapons over failure.
Yeah, and the perspective shift is huge. Failure isn't the end, it's actually a winning weapon.
How so? Success comes through failure.
Yeah. Often, yes. The willingness to risk failure is key. To try new things where setbacks might happen, but success is also possible. Think Peary trying again and again for the North Pole.
So instead of failure, think.
Progressive experimentation. That's the recommended mindset shift. Emerson's quote, "All life is experiment. Each try is just data moving you forward."
And the strategy of expecting nothing, how does that help?
It sounds weird, but by genuinely accepting the possibility of getting nothing, rejection, no sale, whatever go, you remove the fear of that outcome. And paradoxically, that makes you more likely to succeed because you're not paralyzed.
Like asking someone out or political campaigns, Lincoln lost many times.
Exactly. Persistence through accepting potential nothing outcomes. And the source also warns against suppressing positive feelings, like enthusiasm.
Holding back leads to more failure.
Yeah, because you're throttling your own natural energy. You need to let those positive feelings out.
And other weapons mentioned quickly are facing facts, acting without apology, liking yourself, progress before pride, making things happen.
All powerful tools against the fear of failure.
Okay, next up. Total power over circumstances. This sounds ambitious. People feel controlled by circumstances.
Right, but the book argues circumstances are often just reflections of your inner state. We surround ourselves with whatever states we find ourselves in.
Meaning you can change your circumstances by changing your inner state.
That's the core idea. Choose superior internal states, and the external tends to follow. It requires looking at conditions clearly as they are without fear filters, looking for hidden opportunities.
Like the terrible Turk chess player, the power wasn't where it seemed.
Exactly. And it suggests investigating your urge as hunger, impulses instead of just acting on them blindly. Watch the urge itself. That observation gives you power over it.
And the most crucial idea here seems to be putting yourself on your own side.
Absolutely crucial. Dedicate yourself to self first in the sense of growth and well-being. Stop the internal war. Recognize negative emotions like fear and anxiety. Are you fighting yourself? Awareness alone gives you power.
It also talks about drastic action.
Not necessarily melodrama, but a firm, decisive resolve to do something significant. Like Evelyn, feeling stuck, decided firmly to find an outdoor job, acted on it, and transformed her life. It asks you, what drastic action could you take?
And reducing circumstances to size, minimizing them mentally.
Yeah, don't inflate problems. Investigate the actual components. Sometimes humor helps, like the wrong number story used to just deflate tension.
And finally, receptivity, being an open vessel.
Like Wally in the book, who easily received good things, versus Leo, who's closed off. It's choosing self-fulfillment, being open over ego protection, being guarded. You have to be receptive to let good things flow in.
Okay, last major power from this deep dive, The ability to simply attract whatever you want, using the magic of meeting and mind-changing.
Right. The magic of meeting is about how much success comes from contacts, not just knowing the right people, but actively meeting new people, exploring new places. That opens unexpected doors.
One contact leads to another.
Exactly. Revive old contacts. Make the first move with new ones. Keep multiple projects or connections going at once, like Edison or Gilbert and Sullivan did. Widen your sphere.
And mind-changing.
Yeah.
That's the best guarantee of progress.
That's what the source claims. When you're confused or stuck, stop thinking about the problem. Instead, examine your thinking process itself. I don't understand. I pause. I examine.
Suspending judgment brings clarity.
Yes, tranquility and clarity. And a happy mind, it says, is a marvelous magnet. Happiness attracts success, not just the other way around.
Like Benjamin Franklin saying his happiness attracted his success.
Exactly that observation.
So, wrapping up this deep dive into the source material, the main takeaway seems pretty consistent.
Yeah, it really hammers home that the power for success, for fulfillment, is not out there. You don't need to chase it down. It's already inside you.
Accessible right now.
Right.
They're applying these principles. Decisiveness, action, self-knowledge.
Directing emotion, focusing attention, subtracting waste, learning from everything, including failure, staying receptive.
All those tools we've unpacked today.
And remember, these insights came directly from your source material. This exploration was for you.
So maybe a final thought to leave you with. If you genuinely possess these incredible inner forces, as this source argues, and you really can influence circumstances from within, perhaps the most vital skill isn't just knowing about them, but consistently choosing to use that potential power, turning potential energy into applied power moment by moment.
Especially when those old habits, self-doubt, blaming things out there start pulling you back.
Exactly. So the question for you is, what would it look like in your daily life, day after day, to consciously choose these power principles instead of those familiar, easier, perhaps weaknesses disguised as power?